G'day, how you going? So let's talk about macro photography. The things that you need for macro, obviously your camera. You can buy dedicated macro lenses. So the best one I've read is the Olympus 60mm macro. That's around $600 Australian. If you really want to get into macro, it's best to get that one. But if you just want to experiment with it, here are some things that you need. The easiest way and the best way are these extension tubes. Now I've run into problems where I bought cheap ones off eBay. I mean, they're all cheap, but it's a bit pot luck on eBay. You see these pins there? They connect to the pins on the camera, and then so that way you can autofocus and change the aperture. But what happens a lot with the cheap ones or the poorly, is that they break. And I had these for about a week, and I mean, I was careful. One of the pins, they bend. So I went and bought these ones. Now they were about $40. I mean, these were about $20. So it's pot luck on the internet, but I found these ones are really good. These ones are MEIKE. You can tell by the quality of the build when you get them. And you just got to be careful when you turn them on. The other cheap way is to get an old lens, or any lens really, turn it the other way around. So you're looking at it from, so that's the normal way on. You turn it, you reverse it, and then that magnifies in. Preferably a lens like from the SLR days, the film days, where you can control the aperture as well, manually. Another way I found, you can use these CCTV lenses, these cheap ones that you can get on eBay for about $30-40. This one's a 25mm one. 35 is probably better, but some of the deals on eBay, you can get the little extension tubes to go on top, and that will give you that macro effect. Obviously, you'll need the adapter that goes with it, because it doesn't fit on the Micro Four Thirds. You can get that, and that does reasonably good macro. So those are the three ways we'll experiment with. What these extension tubes do is they sit between the lens and the sensor, and they just move the focal point further away from the sensor. That's all they do. Normally on eBay they sell them as 16mm and 10mm. What you can do, you can also connect it to make it more. So you can connect these two as well if you want. So I'm using the 45mm prime lens. That's a good lens to use. Even the 40-150 kit lens is good too. And just be careful. Yeah, then obviously they're third party, so the careful you are, the better. Because look what happened to the one that I bought after a week. The bloody pins go, and it's a pain in the ass. Once those pins go, it's useless. Put on the lens on top of that. Picture it in your head. That's moving away, so whatever's in front is coming closer. Now what the pins do is obviously lets the camera communicate with the lens when you put it on. You don't really need the ones, there are cheaper ones where you don't even have these, and with that then you've got to manually focus and set the aperture yourself. Some other things that you can use are flash with a little diffuser there. These are little light boxes that you can get cheap on eBay that do like product photography. That's good as well, because it's got a full-on light like there. For instance, you can get in on that, and that's illuminated as just as much. And a tripod. You don't need it, but it's easier with a tripod. Some people use those sliders where you put the camera on and you turn it and it edges slightly back and forward like a Okay, so I've put the 16mm extension tube on. It's on a tripod. I've put it in aperture priority. With macro photography, the depth of field is really narrow. What you can do is try and get it as flat as possible, the object. Obviously, if it's a three, like with a coin, it's not too hard, it's not too bad. But with like a flower or something, you're going to have a depth of field problem. Ideally, then you want to try and raise the aperture. That's what that looks like at fully opened. All right, but just to be safe, pump it up to around like 2.8 or maybe 3.2. Maybe a little bit more. You can see at f1.8, you can see you see the tail of the possum there. That's in focus, but the head of the possum isn't. You see that? That's how narrow the depth of field is. If you're wide open, you've got to be careful of that. So obviously that's why put it up a bit, F4 or something, and then you get, see, a bit better. And if you're having trouble focusing with the autofocus, just move the camera back and forward a bit until you find that sweet spot where it captures it on. That's when you know you're in the right distance that the lens allows you to focus automatically. Okay, so now I put the 10mm on top of the 16mm extension tube, and you can even get even better magnification with that. For this one, let's try and put a flash on there. Let's put it in TTL. It's currently at 24mm. So press the zoom button and go all the way 105. So that way the light is concentrated on like a narrow point zoomed in on the subject. And have a look at it. So that's not that much different. So maybe what you could do is increase the exposure compensation. Let's put it to 1. Yeah, that's more even light. The flash compensation, you can turn it up really bright to number 3, and that'd be good for things like a crystal or something. I'll show you. Okay, so let's try this dodgy way of doing it with just an old lens, or any lens really. The idea is just to reverse it. So that's the way it normally goes on, just reverse it. So I'm using this old Canon one from my film camera. The crap thing about it is you have to hold it there because it doesn't screw on, obviously. You can buy a thing that clips on, that screws onto the front of the lens, and then you can, I think, some sort of reverse adapter or something, but I think they're expensive actually. I've lined it up, so, and I'm even focusing because it's all manual focus, so it's actually more magnification. It's actually better. I mean, who needs extension tubes? That's awesome. You know, if you're in a controlled environment and you know, you're not outside and, you know, doing macros of insects and stuff, that's a real cheap way of doing it, and it's effective too. Yeah, it's a bit fiddly, but you can even, you know, turn the focus ring. Let's see how close I can get. I mean, that's super close now. Oh wow. But if you zoom in close enough, you can even find out from the Illuminati. So there's a secret code there from the Illuminati. What's that say? MDCC 1776. These CCTV cameras, they're all manual, and you can adjust the aperture as well. And with these, they're just like extension tubes as well. Let's see what these can do. Let's look at this lemon tree. Now the object here, because this lens is manual, you've got to just close the aperture and just open it a little bit, because the depth of field is so narrow, it's ridiculous. What does that look like? Alright, bloody flies. Practically shut the aperture, just open it a little bit so you get the maximum depth of field. Focus bracketing. So what this one does is it takes multiple shots and it focuses on different areas. So for instance, you can select how many shots you want. For instance, I'm going to do 4 shots here, and you want to set how much you want to focus and how much space you need in between focusing. Then this is really good for things like macro, where you want to get the whole thing in focus, because your depth of field when you're doing macro is very small. So for instance, I'm focused in on that 4 there, and you can see I'm at 1.8, so the depth of field is really narrow. So you can see 5, 6 and 7 are out of focus. What it does actually also, I'll tell you, it puts it in silent shutter, high sequential. Alright, and you only press it once, and that'll take 4 shots, and it'll space it out. It'll space it out away from you, away from the first. So what you want to do then is you want to focus the closest. Alright, so there's the first shot. Then it focused on the 5, then it focused on the 6, then it focused on the 7, roughly. That's because I set a really large here. I set it at 10. So that's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. Okay, so now that you've taken your series of shots, you need to stack them. So there's a program called Helicon Focus. It's not free, you have to pay for it, but you get 30 days free trial. So what you got to do, it's pretty simple. You take the photos. I don't know what happened to those Japanese bonsai photos. I think I deleted them by mistake. But I've got another example here. Just drag them in. Alright. So there's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. You see how it's still in different focus? All you got to do is render. And it goes through and renders it from start to finish. You see how that's in focus all the way to the back. This one I took 5 shots of a rock. Okay, first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. Render, it does its magic, and there you can see it started focusing here and finished till the end. Okay, let's see if I can get one of Jerry's nose. Spike, what are you doing? That's naughty. Alright, Jerry. No, Spike, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Spike, out of the way. Yeah. Jerry, wait. No, ready? Wait, Jerry, you stay still. Jerry! Hey, what are you doing? You want to play? You take a photo.